Hey everyone, so today I'm filming an update on the hydroponics lab for you. I'm going to focus on a couple of things in this video. The first being pruning, how you decide which leaves and other parts of a plant that you want to take off, when it's a good idea to prune things or to leave those big leaves growing. And we're also going to talk a little bit about harvesting. When do you harvest? Why do you choose to harvest a fruit or the leaves of things, and what stage your plants can get to that maybe tell you it's time to harvest them, or you don't have time to harvest them anymore and maybe you want to just let them keep going. So I'm going to show you some things that are going on. We've recently harvested a lot of stuff out and replaced it with some smaller things that are going to keep growing over the spring. And we've got some big things that are finishing their productive part of their life and are starting to make their way out. So let me flip you around and show you what we've got going on. All right, so here is a bit of an update about what the lab is looking like. You can see that our tower garden has gone very crazy. We've got a lot of big growth happening in this area. Our tower garden is a little bit less. We just emptied that out and cleaned it up. So let's start over here with the pain in the butt of the year, which is our cucumbers. This is the second time we've had to replant our cucumbers because they're getting sick. They're getting this parasite or fungus on them. This is called spotty mildew, I believe. And as you can see, the leaves are not doing very good. They are getting these white marks all over them. They're not a very nice color. We are getting some amount of little cucumbers growing, but they don't seem to be going past this stage. They get a little bigger than that, and then they start to get mushy again and not grow. So something is going on here that is making these cucumbers not very good. We've been trying our best to treat them with this concoction. This is water, hydrogen peroxide, and something called neem oil that we've been spraying in here to try to kill some of, I'm missing the plant, to try and kill some of that mold, but it doesn't seem to be working. So we've got a lot of experimenting to do with that. If we come over here, we'll take a look at some of our plants. This giant plant here is a tomato plant. You can see some of the little tomatoes growing. We've got lots of little tomatoes. They're at different stages, which is interesting. You know, even on the same vine, you've got some that have turned red and some that are still green. If you look up over here, there's some that have fallen down over the top of the trellis that are turning red, others not so much. We've tried a lot of these tomatoes. They're tasty. They're a little bit mushy. So maybe you can think to yourself, why would tomatoes that have been grown using hydroponics be a little bit mushy and mealy? Ooh, there's a beautiful red one poking out over here. Okay. Something that I wanted to point out is these two pepper plants. So we've got our bigger, nicer pepper plant here. You can see that it's got some flowers growing, and these flowers have a lot of pollen in them. You can see that there. There's some pollen coming out of the flowers. And then we've got a smaller one right here. Okay, so you've got the big one and you've got the smaller one. The big one grew some peppers. You can see one under here. Actually two. There's a second one. 3, I see. 4. We've got some peppers growing here, but we also are starting to see some signs of something nibbling away at these leaves. We don't quite know what yet, and we're going to keep an eye out. But this one has been able to grow lots of peppers and continue to grow peppers and have those harvests. This smaller one is taking a little bit more time. And as you can see, there is some flowers growing. And we even see a tiny little pepper right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to prune away this pepper, meaning I'm going to take this little pepper off. As much as it seems like, oh yay, my plant is growing fruit, I should let it grow the fruit. What is going to happen if I leave this fruit on my plant? Comparing it to this one. This one's huge, beautiful, and productive. This one is still very small. If I leave this pepper to grow here, this tiny plant is going to spend all of its energy growing this little pepper instead of spending the energy to get bigger. So even though it's nice to have fruit growing on this plant, I'm going to remove this little pepper because I don't want my plant to spend all of its energy turning this into a pepper before it gets big enough to grow more. So I want to make this more productive by pruning away any fruit or any dead leaves that the plant might be sending energy to. The same is true for this giant thing growing up here. It's huge. It grows all the way up to the ceiling. Can you guess what this plant is? This is a pea plant. It got very, very big. We were able to harvest a little bit of peas off of it. Not very many, maybe 20 or 30. So you might look at this plant and think, wow, that's a great plant. It's growing really, really well. But it's not productive at all. It's not producing any more fruit. So despite the fact that it looks beautiful and there's lots of leaves, this plant's gotta go. It is taking up space, it is taking up nutrients, and it's not providing any more fruit. I've got a couple of flowers here, right? Every once in a while it's putting out some new flowers. But it's really not being productive, so it's time for this to get switched with something else. So that is what is important about pruning. This got out of control during the second shutdown from November into March. If I had been here to prune it and keep it under control, maybe I would have been able to get more fruit and make it more productive. But right now, despite having all of this green, this is not a very productive plant. It's not producing food for us anymore, so it's time to go. Again, I'm seeing a couple of little ones. It's starting to try to send out some flowers, but it really at this point isn't worth it anymore to keep it around, and we've got something else to go in its place. So this, despite it being beautiful and huge and making lots of leaves, is no longer making peas, so it's got to go. It's not productive anymore, right? Something that is been super productive is our eggplant. You can see one poking out here. We've got one big beautiful eggplant here at the top that we're letting grow nice and big. It is starting to get a little bit soft, so this is about the time when I would want to pull that off. But there's many other eggplants in here. If you can see them, last time I counted 16 or 17. You can see some over here. You can see some over here. And I want you to think, looking at this plant, why do you think it's been so productive? And also, why did I not cut off all these extra leaves? Some of them are starting to get shriveled up and a little bit brown, but I've left most of them behind. Why? Why do you think I've made that decision? Okay, and do you think that leaving those leaves, wow, look at all those eggplants in there. Do you think leaving the leaves on here has helped it be more productive? Or do you think I should have trimmed those off? Wow, look at that one. The other thing I want you to notice is, look at this guy. Look at this crazy eggplant right here. Okay? Especially comparing it to the beautiful, nicely shaped ones like this, right? Something like this would you be able to sell this at the grocery store? If I was running a farm and I was sending my crops of eggplants to the grocery store, what would I end up doing with an eggplant that looked like this? Okay? Unfortunately, ugly, I'm going to put air quotes there, ugly food is often thrown away, unfortunately. So something like this would end up being food waste just because it doesn't look like a perfect eggplant, which is really a bummer. All of these eggplants are perfectly good, but they are coming out a little bit wonky, and that's probably because I'm not trimming it and keeping them straight. I've got another kind of wonky one over here with a little growth on it. But just keep that in mind. Just because it doesn't look perfect doesn't mean it doesn't taste good. Other than that, here's another example of when pruning goes wrong. This is the nasturtium plant. You can see some of it is still alive, but you know, when I came back in, I unfortunately cut something down here that led to the rest of the plant, and you can kind of see a lot of the plant has died because its nutrients and its water source got cut. So it's trying to come back to life. You can see it's got some little buds, it's got some new leaves, but this needs to get trimmed back so that it can grow from scratch again. Over in the NFT, like I said, we did a lot of harvesting before spring break, so we've got some empty channels. One thing that I want to point out here is one of our tatsois is starting to bolt or flower. So this has been here for quite a long time. It was probably planted in September or October. It's been growing. We've been trimming leaves off the bottom to harvest, but since we didn't trim it back, it seems that it has started to flower. So what we're going to do is we're just going to leave it. We're going to see what happens. We're going to see what does tatsoi flowers look like. Maybe we can try to pollinate it and get seeds, but at some point your plants will do this. They will send up flowers and they will start to get really hard. And maybe not taste so good because they're sending all of their energy to growing these flowers. So before your plant starts to do this, before it sends up a shoot, that's when you want to harvest your plant. Let me see if anything else is bolting. So we've got a basil plant that's doing the same thing. It's sending up flowers. What do you think basil flowers are going to look like? And do you think that it's still going to taste the same after it sends up flowers? That's an important question. So you want to think about that when you're thinking about when it is that you want to harvest your plants. Okay? And I have one more thing to show you. I was brought a special gift from a different lab, which is this beautiful plant. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to let you guess in your answers. What kind of a plant do you think this is? What kind of fruit do you think it is going to grow? And yeah, what do you think it is? I think it's really beautiful and I'm excited to have it. So that is your update on the lab for this week. Hopefully we will be staying in school so I can keep more on top of pruning my plants and make sure that everything gets harvested and shared. Hopefully I can share it with some of you if you're in the building. And yeah, everybody have a great rest of your week and thank you for watching this update. Bye.